The rain pelted the cracked pavement of Lincoln High School's parking lot, each drop a tiny explosion in the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. 16-year-old Emily Harper stood frozen, her thin frame trembling under a soaked hoodie, her pale blonde hair plastered to her face. A circle of 6 girls loomed around her, their laughter sharp and cruel, cutting through the storm. "Look at her," sneered Jessica, the ringleader, her voice dripping with venom. "Little Emily, the ghost who thinks she's invisible." They'd cornered her after school, phones out, recording as they dumped a soda can over her head, the sticky liquid mixing with the rain. Emily's cheeks burned with shame, but she didn't speak. She never did. If you're new here and want to dive into stories of courage and comeback, hit that subscribe button right now and join our community. Because what happened next would change everything, not just for Emily, but for everyone who thought they could break her. Emily Harper wasn't just shy, she was a shadow. In the small town of Willow Creek, Indiana, she moved through the halls of Lincoln High like a whisper, her hazel eyes always fixed on the floor, her voice barely above a murmur. She was the kind of girl who memorized every crack in the linoleum to avoid meeting anyone's gaze. Her classmates didn't know much about her, no one really tried. To them, she was the weird girl with thrift, store clothes, and a backpack that looked like it had survived a war. But what they didn't know, what no one in Willow Creek knew, was that Emily carried a secret. Her father, Michael Harper, wasn't just some quiet mechanic who worked at the edge of town. He was a retired Navy SEAL, a man who'd faced death in deserts and jungles, who'd learned to turn fear into a weapon. And he'd taught Emily one thing above all: never let anyone steal your strength. The bullying had started small, like a spark in dry grass. Jessica Reynolds, the queen bee of Lincoln High's junior class, had noticed Emily in the cafeteria one day, sitting alone with a dog-eared copy of The Catcher in the Rye. Jessica, with her perfect cheerleader ponytail and a smile that could cut glass, saw an easy target. A whispered joke about Emily's faded jeans turned into a nickname. Thrift shop. That spread like wildfire. By sophomore year, Jessica's clique had made it a game: steal Emily's books accidentally, bump her in the halls, post mocking comments on her barely used Instagram. Emily never fought back. She'd go home, lock herself in her room and write in her journal, her only outlet for the pain. Her entries were raw, jagged. Why do they hate me? What did I do? I just want to disappear. But disappearing wasn't an option, not when Jessica decided to escalate. It was October, the air crisp with the promise of Halloween, when things took a darker turn. Jessica's crew had started targeting Emily's locker, slipping in cruel notes or smearing ketchup inside to ruin her books. One day, Emily opened her locker to find her journal, her private sanctuary gone. Panic clawed at her chest as she rifled through her things, her hands shaking. By lunch, the entire school was buzzing. Jessica had posted pages from Emily's journal online, her most vulnerable thoughts laid bare for hundreds to see. "I feel like I'm drowning." One entry read, "I wish I was brave like Dad." The comments were "merciless loser," "pathetic," "crybaby." Emily didn't go to class that afternoon. She ran home, tears mixing with the autumn rain, her heart a knot of humiliation. Michael Harper noticed the change immediately. He was a big man, broad-shouldered with a salt and pepper beard, his eyes sharp like a hawk's. He'd always been Emily's rock, the one who'd taught her to tie knots and start a fire, who'd told her stories of his SEAL missions in hushed tones at bedtime. But he'd also taught her restraint, to choose her battles. That night, as Emily sat at the kitchen table, her face pale and eyes red, Michael knew something had broken. "Talk to me, kid," he said, his voice low but firm. Emily shook her head, her lips pressed tight. It took an hour of gentle prodding before she whispered the truth: the journal, the posts, the laughter that followed her like a shadow. Michael's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching in his cheek. He didn't yell or curse. He just nodded, his eyes burning with a quiet fury. "We're gonna fix this," he said, "but we do it smart." The next morning, Michael drove Emily to school in his old pickup truck, the engine rumbling like a distant storm. He didn't walk her inside, but he watched her disappear into the crowd, his hands gripping the steering wheel. Michael wasn't a man who acted on impulse. 20 years as a SEAL had drilled that out of him. He'd seen what happened when emotions overrode strategy, but he also knew his daughter was drowning, and he wasn't about to let her sink. That afternoon, he made a call to an old friend, Tom Vargas, a cybersecurity expert who'd served with him overseas. "I need a favor," Michael said, his voice steady but laced with steel. "Someone's messing with my kid. I want to know everything." By evening, Tom had traced the posts. Jessica's Instagram was the epicenter, but her clique, 5 other girls, all cheerleaders or wannabe influencers, had amplified the damage, sharing and commenting with glee. Tom dug deeper, pulling up digital footprints that most high schoolers didn't even know they left: IP addresses, deleted messages, even a group chat where Jessica bragged about breaking the ghost girl. Michael read the messages in silence, his face unreadable. Emily, curled up on the couch, watched him. "Dad, don't do anything crazy," she whispered. Michael smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Crazy's not my style, Em. But they're gonna learn." The plan started small, surgical, like a SEAL operation. Michael didn't confront Jessica or her parents. He knew that would only escalate things in the wrong direction. Instead, he focused on exposure. With Tom's help, he compiled a dossier: screenshots, timestamps, every cruel word and post. He sent it anonymously to the school principal, Mrs. Carter, a no-nonsense woman who'd been at Lincoln High for 2 decades. The email was polite but direct. "This is what's happening under your watch. Fix it, Mrs. Carter called an emergency meeting the next day, pulling Jessica and her clique into her office. The girls, expecting to charm their way out, were stunned when faced with the evidence. Suspensions were handed down, 3 days for each girl. But Jessica, as the ringleader, got a week. The school also mandated a public apology at the next assembly. Emily dreaded the assembly. She sat in the back row of the auditorium, her heart pounding as Jessica took the stage, her face flushed with resentment. The apology was half-hearted, a mumble of, "I'm sorry if anyone was offended." The crowd murmured, some snickering, others whispering about Emily. It wasn't enough. The bullying didn't stop. It got quieter, sneakier. Jessica's clique started spreading rumors that Emily had snitched to get them in trouble, painting her as a tattletale. The humiliation deepened, and Emily's journal entries grew darker. "I thought it would get better. It's worse now. I'm not strong like Dad." Michael saw the toll it was taking. He'd hoped the school's intervention would be enough, but he'd underestimated the cruelty of teenagers. One night, as Emily slept, he sat at his desk, a single lamp casting shadows across his face. He opened a locked drawer and pulled out a small box, its contents a reminder of his past, a Navy SEAL trident pin, worn and scratched from years of service. He turned it over in his hands, his mind racing. He'd spent his life protecting others, his country, his team, his daughter. Now it was time to teach a lesson, not just to the bullies, but to Emily. She needed to find her strength, and he knew exactly how to help her do it. The next Saturday, Michael woke Emily at dawn. "Get up," he said, tossing her a pair of running shoes. "We're training." Emily blinked, confused, but followed him outside. The backyard became their boot camp. Michael taught her how to stand tall, how to throw a punch, how to use her voice, not just to speak, but to command. "You're not a victim," he told her, his voice steady. "You're a Harper. We don't break." For weeks, they trained running through the woods, practicing self-defense moves, even meditating under the stars to build her confidence. Emily was clumsy at first, her movements hesitant, but Michael was patient. He saw the spark in her eyes growing, a flicker of the girl she could be. Meanwhile, Jessica and her clique were plotting. The suspension had only fueled their anger, and they wanted revenge. They planned a new stunt, a fake Instagram account posing as Emily, filled with embarrassing posts to make it look like she was unraveling. They launched it during winter break, and by the time school resumed, the account had hundreds of followers. Emily saw it on her phone one morning and froze, her hands trembling. She showed it to Michael, expecting him to explode. Instead, he smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "They just made their biggest mistake," he said. Michael called Tom again. Within hours, they'd traced the fake account to Jessica's laptop. But Michael didn't stop there. He had Tom dig into the girls' digital lives, not to invade their privacy, but to understand their weaknesses. Jessica, it turned out, was obsessed with her image. She dreamed of being an influencer, her Instagram a curated shrine to her popularity. Her clique followed her lead, each girl chasing clout in their own way. Michael saw an opportunity. He didn't want to just stop them. He wanted them to feel the weight of their actions, to understand consequences in a way they'd never forget. The counterstrike was subtle but devastating. Michael and Tom crafted a plan to expose the fake account publicly, not just to the school, but to the entire town. They created a website, anonymous and untraceable, titled The Truth About Lincoln High. It laid out the evidence as screenshots of the fake account, the group chat where Jessica planned it, even a timeline of the bullying. The site included a section called Voices, where Emily, under a pseudonym, wrote a heartfelt letter about what it felt like to be targeted. "I just wanted to be left alone," she wrote, "but you made me feel like I didn't deserve to exist." The site went live on a Friday night, and by Monday, it had spread across Willow Creek like wildfire. The fallout was immediate. Parents, shocked by the cruelty, confronted their daughters. Jessica's clique fractured as the girls turned on each other, blaming Jessica for dragging them into it. The local newspaper picked up the story, running a piece about cyberbullying that didn't name Emily, but praised the anonymous whistleblower who'd exposed the truth. Jessica's Instagram followers plummeted as people unfollowed her in droves. Her dream of being an influencer crumbled. Her posts now met with silence or criticism. At school, the dynamic shifted. Students who'd once laughed at Emily now looked at her differently, some even apologizing quietly in the halls. But the real transformation was in Emily. The training with her dad had changed her. She stood taller now, her eyes meeting the world instead of the floor. One day, in the cafeteria, Jessica approached her, her face twisted with anger. "You think you're tough now," she spat. Emily didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "I don't need to be tough," she said. "I just need to be me." The cafeteria fell silent, every eye on them. Jessica, for once, had no comeback. She turned and walked away, her clique trailing behind her, their power broken. The assembly that spring was different. Emily volunteered to speak, something she'd never done before. She stood at the podium, her hands steady, and told her story, not for pity, but to inspire. "I was afraid," she said, her voice clear. "But I learned that fear doesn't define you. You define you." The auditorium erupted in applause, and Michael, sitting in the back, wiped a tear from his eye. His daughter wasn't a shadow anymore. She was a light. As the school year ended, Emily started a club for students who felt invisible, a place where they could share their stories and find strength. The club grew, and so did Emily's confidence. She wasn't just surviving now, she was thriving. Jessica and her clique faded into the background, their influence gone, their lessons learned the hard way. Michael watched it all, proud but quiet, his SEAL instincts still sharp. He taught his daughter to fight, not with fists, but with resilience, and that was a victory no one could take away. So, there you have it. The story of a shy girl who found her strength and a father who reminded the world that bullies never win forever. If this story moved you, drop a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And hey, let's get some love in the comments. From which part of the country are you watching this video? Let us know and we'll see you in the next one.